welcome back to the Pen and Inkwell. So this is new to me. These are new pens I haven't seen before. I had heard of pens, coming from here before, but really wanted to try them out, and been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to try these out. These are extremely inexpensive pens, and that's why I really wanted to have a look at how well these are. So these are pens coming from Fountain Pen Revolution. So thank you very much for sending these to myself and my colleagues to have a look at as part of the Unitedinkdom. There's going to be a meta review of these. So this is my part and my thoughts on this. So for those of you that aren't aware of the Unitedinkdom yet, there are now 4 of us working together, giving our own thoughts on particular pens and models, and then combining those thoughts really, so you get sort of 3 or sometimes 4 for the price of 1, and really get different perspectives. We all have different tastes in what we like and what we like in a pen, and and sometimes my opinion on a pen might not be the same as your opinion on a pen, and that doesn't mean that my opinion is right or your opinion is right, and neither of them are wrong. It just comes down to preferences. What I can always give in these videos as my thoughts on anything that may be sort of manufacturing and niggling things that may get in the way. But as far as how a pen writes, it depends on your writing style and what you look for. I have a preference for extra fine nibs. A lot of people have a preference for medium nibs, and there's a sort of huge following for sort of big juicy broad nibs out there, which I don't necessarily enjoy. However, since I've been doing this, I've been fortunate to have tried some juicier nibs, and particularly some flex nibs, and this is what I've had the opportunity to look at now, is a particular flex nib. You may have seen one of my other videos when I had a look at the Winston, the Conway Stewart Winston with a flex nib on that, a medium flex, gold flex nib. But that, as I say, that is an expensive pen. That is, that was one end of the market. This now is the complete opposite end of the market, and an opportunity to try a flex nib and see, and and have a play around with it, which is what it's allowed me to do. So these I've been given 2 to have a look at, so I'm going to do them at the same time to give you my thoughts. They are exactly the same model. So what I'm talking about is, say, they were sent by the Fountain Pen Revolution, and they specialise in pens coming from India, and quite a range of nibs available on these, actually, various models of pens, but this one is new to them, and this is what they call the Jaipur. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Please somebody tell me if I got it wrong, and I apologise if that is the case. So these are the 2 I've been sent. So it's a solid black one, and then a demonstrator, and the demonstrator comes in a couple of different colours as well, and I've got 2 different nibs in these. Be honest and upfront right from the start, this one came with the flex nib in it, and this one came with the extra fine nib in it. It's just a standard extra fine nib. Those of you that know me, not the biggest fan of black pens, but I do like a demonstrator pen, and I really wanted to sort of, I'd use an extra fine nib on a day-to-day basis, so I swapped the nibs around, and I put the extra fine nib in this demonstrator, and I put the flex nib here in the solid coloured pen. So when we're talking about one end of the spectrum and the other, essentially the pen with just the extra fine nib retails at $18. The flex nib pen retails at $21. So we really are looking at a comparison, quite a big comparison there, and they are inexpensive pens. We're talking of a $20 pen, which, over here in the UK, we're looking at a £14–15 pen to have the chance of playing with a flex nib pen. And really, even then, if it's just a standard nib pen and not the flex nib, still when you're looking at £13–14 for a fountain pen, and these are piston fillers as well, both of these, that's good value for pens. But obviously we need to know how they work. I'll give you, and whether they work well. However much you spend on a pen, if they don't work, then however cheap it is, it still needs to work well and be reliable. So I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then we're going to have a look at them in a bit more detail, and I'll do a little writing sample at the end of that. But I hope you can join me back shortly once I've turned the camera around. Bye! Welcome back. So as I said, we're looking at 2 different pens. Actually, these 2 are very similar pens, but different from what I've had the opportunity to look at before. So throughout this, I'm going to bear in mind their price. I'm going to bear in mind what they do, but I'm also going to be sort of, you know, honest with everything as well. I want to say thank you very much to the Fountain Pen Revolution for sending these down for us to have a look at. They were both sent to me, and I have to be honest right up front from the start. I swapped the nibs over in them purely for aesthetics. In my point of view, I use extra fine nibs and wanted to test the extra fine nibs in comparison to other nibs that I use, you know, of that size on a daily basis. I really like the way that this demonstrator looks. This aesthetically doesn't do anything for me, but really like the way this looked, so I swapped the nibs around and the nibs and feeds around in both of them, just pop them out and pop them back in. So compared to how they were sent to me, they're the other way around. If you go over and have a look at my colleagues' reviews of these, you might find them the other way around. They probably haven't swapped the nibs around like me. So this is how they are. So I'm going to do them both at the same time for you to see. So this is the Jaipur, and what I've got here is an extra fine steel nib in here, and I've got a flex nib in this one. So as you can see, if we have a look, start with this one. I'll give you the weights and measurements. They're both pretty much, you know, they're the same. It's the same sort of materials. The one's slightly lighter than the other. I think this one's slightly lighter than that one. So weight-wise, 16 grams. It is a light pen. It's an extremely lightweight pen, and it's 9 grams without the cap, so it is a very lightweight pen. It's 134 millimeters long with the cap on, 126 millimeters without the cap, and 157 millimeters if you post it, so it does become a fairly lengthy pen if you post it. Nice size pen, standard sort of size pen, probably comparable to about a, you know, a Pelican M600, that sort of size pen really. Width wise, it's 13 millimeters wide here, and it tapers down to 9 millimeters at the grip. So let's have a look at what we said. You know, I said about price. So this pen hit with the extra fine nib, $18. These retail at on their website, and $21 with the flex nib on there. And I think if you have a broad nib, I think they're $21 as well. Don't quote me on that. I'd better, you know, I'd double check, but I think it's, you know, one of the broader nibs takes it to $21 as well. But still extremely inexpensive pens. So let's have a look at them. I'm going to take this off. So what we've got here is a demonstrator model of this. Comes in different colours as well. So we take the cap off. It's blue at the top here. The clips, they're pretty good for, you know, the cost of the pen. And they're screw cap, which is what I like as well. And sorry, just to have a look closer as well, just around the band here, it's got FPR for the Fountain Pen Revolution stamped across the middle of the pen. So this is the extra fine nib, and it's a pretty decorative nib actually. Two-tone nib, and it's got the FPR logo on there, and you can just see extra fine written on there. The blue grip section, as I say, it is a demonstrator pen, and this is a piston filler pen. So, you know, not only are we talking $18, but we're talking $18 and a piston filler pen. And then we have the solid colour here. So black, exactly the same clip, exactly the same writing across the end, exactly the same screw cap. But what we've got here is we've got an ink window to be able to see, you know, your ink through there. The same two-tone nib, but just slightly different, because you see there it's got FPR written on the one side, and it's got flex written on that other side there. But exactly the same, and then this twists then to make that piston filler. I'll do writing samples with them both shortly. So my thoughts on them. Extremely smooth nibs, which you'll see sort of shortly now. Things that I like about them, the price, you can't, you know, the price is very inexpensive. And do you know what, they don't feel particularly cheap. They don't feel cheap and nasty at all either. I like the demonstrator version. I have to say, you know, I have had leaking issues with this, and you can see it's coming out of the feeds there. But I don't know, I have to sort of say, I don't know whether that's because I swapped the nibs around, but I have put them back in tightly, and I don't know whether it's the particular ink I've got in here. I filled them both with the Diamine Shimmertastic inks, which I'm pretty obsessed with at the moment and trying them all out, which you can see. So this is the blue pearl in there. So if you've sort of had any thoughts about you looking at this ink, you really can see the shimmer inside that barrel there. But you can see there has been some leaking from there. But I think if I just messed about with that, I think I could sort that out, just spent a bit of time. And for the price, I would spend time working out, because it writes very well and it's very comfortable to hold. I'm not going to cry if I lost it. It's not a massive amount of money to lose. So for everyday use, it's good. Whether, maybe it's better off sort of left at home for everyday use, whether it's just the fact that this one has come about with me. It's been in a pen case that I've had, and it's been going back and forwards in my bag to work. So it's taken a fair bit of sort of, moving around. But, so maybe that's added to the sort of, the leaking issues on that. But am I impressed with them? Yes, I am. I'm very impressed with them. When I first started writing with them, I was particularly impressed with them. It's there's some of the wettest nibs around, but what I'm going to do is stop talking about these like this and show you them, so you'll see then from there, and I'll be back with you very shortly. Welcome back. So this is FPR, or Fountain Pen Revolution, Jaipur. I hope that's how you pronounce it. It's getting closer so you'll be able to see that. And this one is as you can see here, this has the flex nib, and this is Diamine Shimmertastic. Got a little too close there. Brandy Dazzle. I think this is my favourite of that line of ink. Just look at the shading in that ink. So it's a wet pen. It's an extremely wet pen. It takes a little while to dry out from there. Flex wise, it's got a fair bit. We're talking of £21, and if you're like me and you're new to flex nibs, it's a good place to start. It gives you more variation than a standard sort of 1.1 nib or italic nib, and it offers just something different to play with. Sorry, my hands are absolutely filthy dirty and covered in ink, but for me it's only a sign of a good day, I would say. So that is that one there. Very smooth nib. Can you see that there? Some fantastic shading on that one. So now this is the extra fine. So this again, FPR, Fountain Pen Revolution, Jaipur, but this is the EF nib, the extra fine nib, and this ink is another of the Diamine Shimmertastic inks. Diamine, Shimmertastic, and this one is Blue Pearl. It's an extremely smooth, good flowing pen. I haven't had any hard starts at all. I haven't had any skipping whatsoever. It has been really nice to write with. But if I could sort the leaking out, you know, that would be brilliant. As I say, I've had absolutely none with this one at all, so I think it's just something that I need to potter with. There is still a little bit of flex in this nib, even though it's an extra fine. Again, it's quite a wet nib. Not as much as the flex nib, but then this ink is particularly wet as well. So if there's any questions any of you have got that you want me to answer, this is it. I'll put the link to where these are from. There are lots of other models of pens as well that are, you know, worth looking at. I'm tempted to have a look at as well. For the price point, I think they're very good. You know, they're very serviceable, and I think they'd be very nice to sort of, you know, have a play with, particularly with that sort of flex in there. And if you want to try, if you're trying out different nibs or trying out something new, they're definitely worth having a look at. So any questions, please just ask, leave a comment below, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and I'll see you all again very shortly. Bye.